Turn this off.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Monero Coffee Chat. We're happy to have you here. Of course, it's February 2021 if you're watching at some point in the future. You're on with Justin. He's just the idiot behind Breaking Monero. You're on with Sarang, the smart person behind Breaking Monero. Andres, who's the smart designer guy, as you can tell based off his background. And XMR Scott, who I believe is also here. I guess we could do our standard intros. Sarang, want to go first?
Sure. So I'm Sarang Noether. I do math and cryptographic research and a little bit of development from time to time. And yeah, I enjoy math, crypto, privacy, learning about the space, and participating in it.
That's awesome. It's good to have people here who like math. I'm seeing some people in the chat. We have Vic and Chill here too. Vic, I sent you an invite link on IRC if you want to join. Otherwise, happy to have you on YouTube too. I know Chill, thanks for joining us for the first time on YouTube here. Andres, what about you?
Hello, my name is Andres. I am a part of the Monero team. I also do some other stuff around the Monero community in general, making proposals for logos and graphics all around.
Awesome. You're known for coming in second place in every single logo.
Yes.
Contest. You're consistently second.
I had somebody else win the prize.
Yes, you set someone else who's.
It feels like a competition somehow. It's not like.
Oh, I see how it is. Yeah, it's actually you. You submit both designs, and it's always this random other account that wins. I see. And then we have Scott.
Yep, just kind of an oddball contributor, mainly with the translations work group and the DEF CON work group, and do a little bit of Monero space IT stuff in the background. So.
Yep, very much. Speaking of that, the Monero Space forum is back up after like what, a month or whatever of downtime. Maybe more than a month. I don't remember, but putting content out there. I actually wrote up something I was going to post there about atomic swaps. I think we'll have time to talk about that today. But yeah, I was going to write some up there. So keep an eye out if you're looking for Justin ramblings. He'll probably go there, and then I'll just link him on Reddit. But I guess other quick things, working on the Monero Space ecosystem. I'm still working on getting that Discord relay up. I think I'm just waiting on one server and need some details from Need Money 9 to do that. Because I know a lot of people don't want to use IRC directly, but some people just prefer Discord because that's where all their other communities are. So it'd be good to have, meet people where they are. Yeah, I guess that's the main thing. Trying to get some support and stuff too, but Discord is really top priority. So I guess Sarang, really important for everyone's knowledge of what's going to happen in the Monero ecosystem here. Triptych, right? Triptych is actually pretty close. Can you explain like how close we generally are with Triptych and what the general next steps are?
Yeah, so Triptych is a zero-knowledge proving system that can basically be kind of tweaked a little bit and worked into a transaction protocol that works somewhat similarly to how the current Monero transaction protocol does, but with better scaling. And there's all sorts of like kind of under the covers plumbing that allows that to happen with better scaling overall. And it's one of many different options that exist, some of which use kind of a similar underlying structure, and some of which use a different one. And all of these have different trade-offs in terms of things like the trust model and what kind of compatibility we could get with existing keys, and how the scaling works when you have transactions of different structures and sizes. And so far, it seems like the consensus is that Triptych is probably the top contender for that. There's other ones like Arcturus that in theory can get you better scaling, but at the expense of different mathematical assumptions that are much less tested, if tested at all. So what I have right now is some kind of research code, both that's been done in Python just for kind of some initial algorithm testing, and then also in C++ that's designed to work with the Monero code base. And that's not a complete implementation, that you can just start running your own node today.
I was about to say, so you're telling me I can't just take this code and make my own Monero trip fancy T coin. I shouldn't do that.
I'm glad you're not in charge of naming these things.
That's a good point.
But I don't know. I'm not good at it either. But whatever. But anyway, the proving and verifying algorithms are in place. And again, research quality only, hasn't been vetted, don't use it yet. In C++, compatible with the Monero code base, as well as some tests that are used to show both kind of general correctness and also that basically try to mimic what a transaction structure would look like, including things like balance and some other stuff that we have to do to make transactions work. So the idea is that we have a pretty good understanding of how the space and time would scale on that in an actual implementation. So there's still a lot more that would need to be done, that for consensus-related code, implementation-related code, this should all be, vetted and audited and reviewed externally. But it's in a reasonably good place. There's some optimizations that have been suggested by other researchers and developers that are really interesting. And I just haven't had a chance to go through and look through them and figure out, to what extent they apply, if they'd be useful for our purposes, or if they're more just kind of interesting in theory, but wouldn't really work for what we want. And beyond that, there's still some questions about what to do about anonymity set selection. So one of the big benefits of this is that you can go to larger transaction anonymity sets in a way that doesn't scale as poorly as like the current structures that we use would. But that also comes with other consequences, right? Like, okay, you can do bigger anonymity sets. Like, what can you do with that would provide better practical privacy to users? It still limits on this in practice. So you want to kind of maximize how you'd be selecting these anonymity sets. And there's some cool stuff we can do that takes advantage of some very early research on kind of doing bins of old outputs that you would pull into a transaction. There's some questions about what you could do with things like output merging, where you kind of look at the structure of outputs and how they exist on the chain, as well as kind of just how you represent anonymity sets in the transaction. You have to somehow refer to the outputs that you're including in your anonymity set, and that takes up space too. It's often negligible right now, but as you get much larger anonymity sets, this becomes less negligible. So there's questions on that, as well as questions on how multi-signature transactions would work. So multi-signatures on the existing structure that we have a lot more flexibility, and it's a lot easier to do them in theory than it would be with something like Triptych or one of the many other proposals that have been put forward. So we understand more or less how to do multi-sig transactions with that, but it's just more advanced and more complicated, and it would require a lot more code that, again, would have to be reviewed. So I guess it's unclear to what extent multi-signature transactions are important to users right now. I don't personally have a good feel for that. And so that's a decision that the communities would have to make when deciding if they want to go with something like this.
Everyone should keep an eye out.
It's in a good place. It's just not finished yet.
Okay, yeah. Everyone should keep an eye out on the Monero Research Lab repo if you are interested in these sorts of things. At the moment, there's basically two schools of thought that are being discussed in the Monero Research Lab and how to actually bring this forward. I think the vast majority of the community at this point is for moving Triptych forward because, I mean, it's a 10x ring size. It's just great. So it's really exciting, right?
Yeah,
knock them dead with Triptych.
And it's worth noting that in theory, like there aren't really limits to how large you can make the anonymity set, right? It's the big consequence is that ends up being verification time. And you can make that a little bit better with certain kinds of batch verification. But it's worth saying that when Justin says like, oh, 10x ring sizes, well, you can make it whatever you want. It just depends on, what do you want the consequences to be in terms of verification? And in the past, folks have said, well, I don't know, what could we do with keeping verification the same as it is now, just as kind of an arbitrary benchmark. But at the same time, we've been able to decrease verification time from earlier, proposals. So transaction verification's already gotten a lot better. So there's questions about, have we built up enough headroom that if you had to increase that a little bit, it'd be worth it? But these are all questions that don't really have clear answers right now.
Yep. So if you are interested, go to the MRL meetings. That's where these are discussed.
Yeah, there's a lot of research going on with Triptych, but also with other proposals for trustless confidential transactions. So this is a cool time to be researching in this space.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And just to get the research stuff out of the way, we have Arctic Mine joining us. Hello, Arctic Mine. And then after introducing yourself, can you talk about what, briefly what you're doing on scaling?
Well, I've been doing some work on scaling an issue 70, Emerald issue 70. And what's happened there is that I basically have a proposal and it's not being reviewed. There's one of the fellows and he's looking at it right now, waiting for comments on that. The main concern there to sort of explain it is that if we have a significant drop in transaction rate from a high level, so if we go into the deep into the penalty, and for whatever reason there is a significant drop in transaction rate, then without putting the flaw and stabilizing both the long-term and the short-term medians, then we can have a very sharp increase in transaction fees, and that can be very disruptive. Under certain circumstances, certain types of attacks, this could be attackable, like create an incentive for an attack. And I want to make it clear, it only happens if you are deep in the penalty. And it hasn't happened really because we haven't been in, we're outside of the penalty, we're still within the penalty. So if we have like say 100 times or say 500 times the transaction volume that we do have, and suddenly you had a drop or some disruption, that's when the problem occurs. So that's kind of what I've been working on. There is a proposal right now on issue 70 that I put there for discussion, and that's kind of what's happening there.
Awesome. Thank you, Arctic Mind. I think we're probably not going to discuss that specifically now, but the idea is bump the base fees up a little bit higher. So, the least amount you can pay is a little bit higher, but then the rate grows slower. Is that generally fair?
Yeah. There's another side to this, and part of the idea was that we increase the base fee basically to what the minimal what we call reference transaction size, which basically means the minimum transaction size that you can mine and still scale the blockchain. So that's the base fee. You set it higher, and then because it's quadratic with the block size, it actually falls. And if we had about roughly 5 times the penalty fee, so about blocks of the size of about 1.5 megabytes, we would have a well, what happened then is we would have a fee that is essentially the same as what we would have now for the low fee, but it would be mineable all the way through. So the advantage there is that the fee will always be mineable, rather than have situations like if it scales right now, is that you have a fee that's too low for it to be mineable, and it has scaling at the same time, while the normal fee next tier is actually too high in order to do the minimum mining. So you have a situation where you have a very strong incentive to actually go away from the standard fees and get an optimal fee. So that's the other aspect of that. So the fee will rise, and so and then it will fall quadratically, and that would follow essentially the minimum mineable fee. The other thing to bear in mind with this, and when you're looking from a spam risk, is that we have to look at the problem of what is the likely increase in price of Monero if we say double. Let's say, for example, let's say our transaction activity goes up by a factor of 100. Will the price of Monero go up by a factor of 100 or 10,000 or somewhere in between? And that effectively determines the cost of spam to sort of do a spam attack. And so what I did also look at is, okay, historically what has happened. And if you would think of Metcalfe's law, which is basically if I take a network and the value of the network goes to the square of the size of the network, that's one extreme. Or you say it goes linear with the network, so that we want exponent is 1 for linear and exponent is 2 for vector, so for quadratic. Most of the cryptocurrencies, and I'm talking about Monero, came at about 1.59 the last 5 years, roughly, with the exception of Bitcoin. They were between 1 and 2. It's also 1 point something, or a little over 2 in some cases. Bitcoin from 2010 to 2015 came over 1.28. But if you look at Bitcoin from 2015 to today, it had 4 point something, really fast growth, and that's due to the fact that the block size in Bitcoin is artificially capped by the protocol. And what the market has done, I suspect very strongly, is it's moved away from the blockchain itself onto centralized ledgers exchanges for doing a lot of economic activity. So that's created this increase in the price without an increase in network activity, or very minimal increase in network activity. So because of that, I look at Bitcoin for the last 5 years primarily as an outlier. And if you look at the other coins that I look at, which was Litecoin, Dash, and Dogecoin, of course Monero, they all kind of fall in this range. So you would expect it to be between 1 and 2. As long as it's above 1, the cost of spam with a quadratic minimum fee will actually increase as you increase the size of the network. So that's the key thing to understand about this. But you are looking at this dynamic the price is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I think it's really exciting. We'll yeah, interesting to see when this is
implemented. I do regret to inform you, Arctic Mind, that you sound like you are in a Daft Punk music video.
Yeah, you might want to try actually disabling your video, to be honest, to get the audio through a bit clearer.
It's a cool effect, but might not be what you intended.
On today's Has It. Actually, before I go to conferences and stuff, I think I want to quickly address a question that came in. Vic asked in chat about the Anon CCS proposal. It's I linked it in the chat. It says Anon, perfect peer-to-peer protocol from bottom to top. And honestly, to be honest, I don't really know who this contributor is. I haven't spent time working with them. This is based off Celsta vouching for them. Apparently, they have done some previous contributions to the Monero code base. Those are linked. For example, I'm gonna relink it here for you all. But Celsta made a comment in the proposal where Celsta linked these things. So I think, I mean, Celsta knows what they're doing, and if they feel comfortable, they have a better assessment than me. So it'll be interesting to see where this specifically goes. And you can see other individuals voicing their support there. So we will be interesting. And oh goodness, this is the first time I've seen this in forever. Just to stress, it says in here, I'm going to read Binary Fate's comment. The Monero core team decided to allocate 24 Monero from the general fund to this proposal. When was the last time that the Monero core team funded a CCS proposal? Has it been years? If you're watching this in chat, if you want to go do some treasure hunting and figure out,
it has happened quite a few times in the past. Actually, that the Monero core team has actually added money to a proposal.
Has it happened in the last few years though? Because I know up to 2017 this is relatively common, but since then I don't recall many times.
I'm trying to remember when is the last time it has happened. It has happened on some proposals, but there was a lot of donations recently to the call fund, so I think that's one of the reasons why that would happen. It depended to a large degree of where the revenue is. The other factor that does it, to be quite honest, is of course if the price goes up, then there's more money in the kitty, so you can actually spend on these kind of things. So because the cost of the proposals go down. But it has happened before. I think there was a bit of belt tightening, I would say, for the last year and a half, a couple of years, mainly also during the bear market in terms of USD. And that was an impact. And then it opens up again. But that's mainly the reason why.
Interesting. Briefly, I didn't expect to cover this conversation today, but how does can you describe a little bit about how the Monero core team determines what projects to fund and how much?
Well, I mean, it depends on the cases. It is a bit ad hoc. I mean, and when you look at it, whether how much money there is in the fund, also whether it's something that people feel in the team that's actually for the project overall. Those are kind of the main factors. But it is pretty much on a case-by-case basis. The decision is made.
Okay, yeah, just caught me off guard. I just noticed that in the call here right now. So yeah, I'm not really able to address who the contributor specifically is, just because I haven't worked on networking on Monero. But I know that Celsa, who has made a recommendation, and there are a few other comments in there by others who were more involved. So I suggest starting by reading the GitLab information that I linked in YouTube there. So I guess moving on to conferences, Andres, I'm going to hand this mostly over to you to describe not just what talk you gave at the conference, but also A, what the conference was, and B, what happened with Monero's representation at it. So set the initial stage for the listener, please.
Okay, it was kind of a surprise for me as well, because at first I was invited to talk, and I said yes, of course, to present something about Monero, but I said that before seeing the lineup for the conference. That was like a 2-day conference, online conference, of course, due to these Corona times. And this is the Crypto Vigilante Summit, I think it was, the Crypto Vigilante Summit. And it was a nice surprise, because it turned out that the first day of the conference, I think besides Giacomo Succo, I don't remember if anybody else, the rest were all Monero people. And it was kind of a running joke in the chat of the attendees to the conference, that I don't know if they were told in advance, or they realized in advance how many Monero people were going to be there. So from time to time they say, okay, great, more Monero news. But I think it was really really positive, because there were roughly above 1,000 people online most of the time, which is very, very good compared to the regular numbers of live streams like this one.
Hey,
Monero exclusive people.
Don't at me with the 23 people watching this right now.
Yet. But yeah, I think it was. I had no idea also beforehand that there were going to be that many people. I think it was something possible, because there were people that were mostly open to the whole idea of cryptocurrencies. But I noticed by the comments, basically during some other people's talks, because during mine I haven't seen anything, just not to be distracted, that there were quite a lot of new people to crypto. People evaluating for the first time what crypto is for. So it was good. I think it was really positive. Most of the people came up with an open mind, and perhaps they have seen or hear stuff here and there, but were kind of like a blank slate, so to speak, in some regards. The whole Monero angle that is so familiar for us at this point, or anybody that just sees your videos or Monero Talks videos or whatever. It was also fresh for me, at least, so I think for us, to see the reaction of new people facing Monero characteristics for the first time. Like, for example, people asking about fungibility, for example. What is that? And it sounds weird. And then you almost could see I mean, the Lego drops in their head, like, so this is important, right? And wait a minute, how this Bitcoin thing works without fungibility? So some people may get like a reaction from so many, you're shilling Monero all around. What's going on with this conference? But at the end, I think the reaction was very positive. There was all the the good Monero lineup with Doug from Monero Talk. It was Diego, Regar from the community group. Overall.
Yeah, like I literally could not have come up with a lineup that had more Monero contributors.
It was Monero, it was Fluffy itself, the guy that made the first Monero video that I ever seen in my life. So it was Fluffy there. And of course, at the end, it was you with a very nice talk as well. And at the end, it was the very only Daniel Kim, the one with the best image and the best content of us all, of course.
So yeah, it was pretty interesting. I did not expect so many people.
The best voice.
Who does? Sorry.
Daniel Kim even has the best voice of it's the best mic, the best camera, light, and content of everybody.
Yeah, Daniel does a great job.
Whoa, who's that?
Sleep. I am Sleep. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the late entrance. I didn't realize I forgot to set an alarm, and then, yeah, didn't get up until now. Hello.
Hey, Need Money 90.
Hello.
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 Hey,
Hello,
Some
Artwin.
kind of weird Christopher Nolan thing where like you're broadcasting from within your dream or something.
Maybe if I'm still asleep, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just gonna be a minute. Let me wake up.
That's all right. Much like a Christopher Nolan movie, it can take quite a while before we realize what's going on. I'm kidding. He makes some fun movies.
It was. I just was utterly shocked that 1,500 people were watching a lot of those talks. Like I was like, oh, these. I didn't realize there was such a big group of these people, and
1,500. That's a lot.
Like this is more than watch our DEF CON talks. Okay, fine. You know, whatever.
So how many people did end
really
up watching like some of the DEF CON talks or the Monero Conference stuff? Do you know what those numbers were ish? Just to get an idea.
I mean, for the live streams, we would, I don't know, 50 people, maybe, perhaps. Monero Con was, as far as live events go, it really did pretty well. Honestly, like Monero Con had a lot of people watching, and the Monero coffee chat did pretty well when we were waiting for the next block to come in, and everyone's like, "Oh goodness, what's happening with the network?" And everyone piles in watching stuff because it's the live event. But
I feel like the live stream for the Conferenza was extremely professional looking.
Oh,
I remember on one laptop, I wanted to check it out. So I went to another room on a laptop and I saw like these like fancy intermission slides. And I was like, what?
The C3 set a new standard in like I will take some credit. Okay, I should take a lot of credit for the Monero Con live stream, but
yeah, you were in the back, like I
was sitting in the back the whole time doing that, and I was making sure that it was like really good 1080 60 FPS, you know, like gorgeous.
As far as I can tell, watching it from like one of the side rooms, it worked really well.
What actually really annoys me is like, so we have the live stream copy, which I saved, and then we also have the local copy that the paid professionals saved, and guess whose quality copy was better? It's just like they just saved like this super like 14 FPS 720p nonsense that no one should ever want to watch, and I don't know, it's just that's what they do for some reason. I don't know why. It's not like hard drive space is
here's a laser disc with your
it's like they're trying to cram it all onto a single DVD to give you at the end. Here's 50 hours of content on one DVD, when if only there was another way to store medium, you know, nowadays.
So are we going to have another Monero Conference at some point?
Yeah, that's a really big topic. So right before this Monero Meet, there was a Monero community work group meeting. It wasn't super well advertised or anything, but it did happen in Monero Dash community. And yes, the reception was warm to having a June Monero Con conference. I stress the importance that, you know, so okay.
You mean 2022, right?
No, this is a virtual 2021 June Monero Con.
Let's not do anything in person.
Yeah, we're not doing anything in person. That would not go very well. But the difficult part is MoneroCon is supposed to be a very professional, buttoned up. Well, by buttoned up, I mean you don't actually need to button up, but like it's supposed to be a professional conference where people talk about research. It is a research and developer conference. It's supposed to be pretty high information sharing. But it's hard to do a virtual conference where it's all just sitting and watching those really fancy talks, because ultimately you do need the conversations on the side, and you do need to have all the fun activities sprinkled throughout the day. And that's hard to do if it's a purely academic conference. So we're sort of approaching something at the moment where, we still schedule the talks to be, very academic, very research level. And then on the other hand, we sprinkle in a bunch of fun engagement level events throughout, which
some lighter content.
Yeah, lighter content, right? Like what Diego floated the idea of, some Minecraft building activity or the like. Like you have to give people a reason to want to engage in the conference. Otherwise, everyone's just going to want to watch the talks later on YouTube, right? Let's be honest, right?
Have we explored...
The thing that happens is also, as a speaker, you do not get feedback from the audience, and that is critical. One of the things that I found as a speaker very difficult when I spoke at both the Great Hat and also DEF CON talks is I'm not getting that feedback from the people that are sitting there. And that's actually quite critical as a speaker. And I've spoken to a lot of other speakers in completely different fields about this. And they said, absolutely, you're right. This is not the same. You're not getting the audience feedback. And so that makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Yep. It was depressing to me when I gave like a Zoom style talk, how much worse I was at giving a talk than when there's an audience. I didn't fully appreciate the extent to which being able to see your audience impacts the confidence you have in it and your ability to just speak publicly. Maybe that's just me, but at the end, I was disappointed with how the change in quality from how I think that a lot of my in-person talks go.
How many of the virtual conference tools have we explored? I know we tried some of the ones that are held in actual digital space. I know we've tried a couple. So semi-virtual reality, one was a browser / you could actually pop in with VR, but
the Mozilla one, right?
Yeah, we tried Mozilla. I've forgotten the names of them right now.
The one that the C3 used, which is probably the main one we're going to look at using at the moment, is Work Adventure. It's workadvent2.re. So like adventure.re. It's like an 8-bit style. It actually looks kind of like honestly a pretty good fit in style for.
And maybe it won't melt your computer like the Mozilla one tried to do.
Well,
the Mozilla one was fun, but it sounded like my laptop was about to like start a jet engine and like take off or something.
That's OBS Ninja too. I'm surprised yours isn't doing that at the moment.
Oh, the fans are running quite hard.
Oh, it's good. We're pumping out the good quality here.
They probably updated
OBS Ninja really puts a stress on the processor. That's what actually is the limiting factor.
This Work Adventure.
I've been monitoring my processor in this call, and that's the limiting factor. It's not the internet, it's not the bandwidth, it's the processor. And that is basically what limits the OBS Ninja. It's very processor intensive.
Yeah, I was doing a one-on-one interview with Vic earlier this week, which is on this YouTube channel if you would like to watch it. And it was just a one-on-one, and I was like, oh, it's just one-on-one. Vic probably has a solid computer. So I enabled an option OBS Ninja to like uncap the quality. So I'm like, yeah, send source back and forth, right? Oh my gosh, that did not work really well. We had to stop the interview like 2 minutes in. And I was like, no, it's just cutting out too much. We have to do this over.
This Work Adventure thing, like, this looks like whimsical and fun.
It looks fun, right? Like you can pop around.
I'm just looking at the screen caps they have, and this looks really cool. I wonder how well it would do for events where you want to have like some restrictions. You know, like if you're in giving a talk, you know, you don't want anyone in the audience just coming in and wrecking things. So I wonder how good it is for kind of a mix between, you know, areas where everyone can just kind of hang out and do their own thing, and, you know, places where you want not I don't mean like moderation, like you should make sure people aren't being terrible, but, you know, just very much like a one-to-many sort of thing, like giving a talk. That probably works for that. And how much it costs. It looks like it can be self-hosted too.
Yeah, I see.
They don't list the prices.
We'll have to see exactly what the self-hosted looks like. I know people are obviously going to like the budget for the in-person conference is obviously going to be probably or was probably far greater than the budget for a virtual like. So we could pay a few bucks if it's worth it for a better tool. I don't think there will be anyone that's going to be like, oh no, we can't spend like a little bit to not have a miserable experience.
They don't say what the total price is. They say that if you want to use the non-free one, because there's a free hosted one, it says that's for 25 users. But for events, it says contact us for a quote. But then they do say that it is also available for self-hosting under an AGPL license.
I hope that has all the features. If not,
the self-hosted version contains everything available in the free tier.
Damn.
Which would not include access management, moderator controls. You probably want moderator controls.
Yeah, you might want that one.
Most people will seem like they're reasonable people, but there's always some people who are not.
Yep, pretty much. Okay, but that's exciting. I'm looking forward to a fun Monero Con. However, before then, a lot of people sometimes forget in April, Moneroversary. You know, we got that's entirely dedicated to fun. You know, celebrating Monero's anniversary, birthday, whatever you want to call it. But you know, maybe I'll fire up some trivia again. You know, come up with some other ideas.
What's the downside?
Opportunity.
Sorry, first Arctic Mine, and then first Andres, and then Arctic Mine.
No, I want another opportunity to challenge the trivia again.
Okay, cool. I'm glad other people are fans. Arctic Mine.
What's the downside with Jitsi?
You just can't do rooms and things very. You have to like, I don't know, make a spreadsheet and hop. I don't know. It'd be.
Because the thing with Jitsi is, I mean, this number, I can tell you right now, this number of people on Jitsi not even close to the problem with bandwidth, with processing power at the client. And
I mean, replicating like the hallway track stuff.
And you can also,
seems like
and also at the client end, you can turn off the video on screens. That allows you to prevent.
I'm afraid that your Daft Punkness is making it hard to understand what you're saying.
So,
yeah, I think your point is being made as you're talking here.
I think what Arctic Mine is trying to say is that getting good quality audio can be a challenge. I actually really do like the idea of having something that is almost kind of specifically room-based, just because otherwise it seems like it's really hard to replicate the chance interactions and stuff.
I totally agree. I wonder if there's some fancy thing where like you can easily do like whiteboards and stuff. I don't know if it just means sharing your screen and then getting a draw pad or something, but
yeah.
It's too bad that no one's been able to like really crack this, you know? I mean, maybe it's impossible in practice, you know, to actually do like to really replicate a conference and everything you get from it digitally.
Well, we'll get as close as we can, and we're going to try and make
it.
The
8-bit thing looks like it'd be fun to at least try out, even just with they have a free tier just to try it out and see, like, do a fake little thing. And,
yeah, that's a good point.
It looks fun. It's like this fun little like overhead world 8-bit thing. It looks cool.
Yeah, I think the easy way to get,
unfortunately, due to a conflict. So,
bye, Sarang.
See that.
I just missed him. Bye.
I know. Is Scott still here?
Yeah, still here.
What are your thoughts about a Monero Con? Are you excited for this?
Yeah. I mean, I think kind of as was mentioned, we haven't had one in going on 2 years now. So I think trying to have it in some form would be useful, especially I think as either you or someone else mentioned on Dash community, there's plenty of things to talk about that it's not like there's a shortage of topics. So hopefully it can be pulled off relatively well. I know there's a lot of like, there hasn't, from what I've seen at online conferences, there hasn't necessarily been like what I would feel like a concentration on like a particular framework that people are using to kind of orchestrate conferences. In terms of like, I'm spacing on the name. I've seen like some people I think use what is it called? I want to say Hop On or something. But yeah, it's just like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm hopeful. I guess I don't know if it'll necessarily, you know, of course, be everything that we hope it to be, but I mean, it's better than nothing. So.
Yeah,
If I may say
I think it'll be
something
fun.
about
I'm
this,
ready.
Obi,
Go ahead, Rick Mine.
Ninja, the best way to make it work is to cut off the video and just use audio only, because that basically is what's stressing the processes. So if everybody cuts off the video, and then maybe at one point, then you won't have audio distortion. I noticed it right when I was, yeah, I'm seriously. I mean, I looked at it, and even when I turned on the video, and I got my audio off, and suddenly the audio goes down on the line, and my processor wasn't stressing, so it was stressing the other end. It's that sensitive.
Chill is recommending in comments that we should host it on Clubhouse. I know Doug from Monero Talk, other Doug, not the one in here, has a Clubhouse account, but that's iOS only, and I don't have an iOS device. So how am I supposed to join, sadly?
Well, if it's iOS only, then I won't join either. I mean, that's the problem. If you have a platform which is, but you have to be in one particular company's little garden, it's not going to work.
You're cutting out real hard, Arcticline.
Yeah, I'm still getting a lot of cut.
I don't know what's up with either your mic or your connection, but it is almost unlistenable.
I'm just connected. It's fine.
Oh, if switching topics a little bit, I know Binary Fate was not able to join us, but one of the important pieces of news in Monero history, right, is that this month XMR.to stopped operating. They ceased their operations. So that shouldn't impact users that use like Cakewalt and stuff for exchanges. They'll still use like Change Now, which is built in, but they no longer have XMR.to as an option, which I know a lot of people probably used at some point. So does anyone want to give quick thoughts on XMR.to?
Yes, it was the only option that we had out of Monero being not Monero. I mean, just the only way to get Bitcoin out of your Moneros in Monero. And it was a surprise for us as well as for everybody else. Well, not, I don't know everybody, but for us it was a surprise. And we are looking right now. We are about to release this weekend, if we manage to, like a new version without the XMR.to on it. That so far it only gives you an error, so that's not a good user experience. But without the XMR.to, and we are exploring different alternatives. We are open to suggestions, everybody. If you want to send it our way on the subreddit r/Monero or our email. But we are working on that. We are evaluating different options and different providers of KYC-less exchanges and how they work.
What are the main choices? Morph token and Change Now at the moment, or is there a third I'm not thinking of?
We have like 6 or something like that. suggestions from people that, yeah, I use that, I use this one, and we don't want to disclose which ones we are evaluating right now, but we are trying that. M2049er, that is the developer itself, the coder is trying up their APIs and see how they work. It's kind of tricky because on one side, and if we manage to do that like in an elegant way, we are also considering adding it two ways, right? Before now, we have it just one way from Monero to Bitcoin, XMR.to to Bitcoin, and now we're exploring it, having it both ways from Bitcoin to Monero as well, or maybe some other coins as well, but keeping the app only Monero only for storage. So that means that we have to change a bit of the UI as well to match that, and even more if we are eventually going to have more than one provider, which would be really cool because we could have several and just compare their fees, and the user can choose for themselves what they like the most. If they want the cheapest fee, or perhaps this service I don't like because I have experience in the past, so I want to use these other two ones. So we're exploring that, and we have to come up with a good way to put that in the UI as well, because as far as today, that is not there. But that's the main challenge. It was a surprise because we were working on some other stuff after December, that was basically trying to solve the whole evil nodes issue that was on the network. So we have that. We are also, if you want to discuss some features, we are thinking of ways to improve the Tor support in the app. Maybe doing something that makes it way easier to use Tor without you having to go to Orbot and start it and setting up in VPN mode. So it's just like a switch that you put it on Monero. It's like, well, take me to the dark side.
Nice, yeah.
Goes into Tor and goes back. So, or just always use Monero in Tor, for example, and it's just like an in-app setting, something that is like that. We are also exploring multi-sigs, which are really painful, even from the conceptual.
You're actually building that out, multi-sig?
We have been exploring multi-sigs in the past, like 4 months ago, maybe even a year or something, when they appeared. The trick about multi-sig, I'm sure smarter people than myself can explain it better, but we haven't found. In Monero, we tried our best to keep it like as decentralized everything as possible, right? The same with the whole node screen that is sometimes a pain in the ass to use, and we fought a lot, not using like default nodes and stuff like that. So the same thing happened with the multisig, as far as I could understand, that our problems was to how do we communicate between the two wallets for doing the multisig as well. So I remember once we explored BitMessage, for example, because it looked like technically the thing that this is so centralized and super better, and it was a pain to use, and it didn't work. It brought up more problems that it solved due to the synchronization issues, right? So we are exploring how can we make that work, but we would love to have multi-sig on the wallet.
As Sarang alluded to, make sure to keep an eye on the changes that are coming with Triptych, because multi-sig definitely will change with Triptych. So, oof. But no, that's interesting. I think it's, make sure, I mean, if you can, send me the list of options you're looking at, and I can do some, looking on the back end and make some other recommendations based off like how everyone else views them or whatever. Don't want users to buy tainted Bitcoin, ideally, right? So,
well, I think I think with multi-sig, the whole issue of having to change under certain circumstances the transaction format, because you can't send multi-sig transactions to Triptych multi-sig transactions to existing multi-sig addresses, if I understand correctly.
Basically, in order to spend Triptych funds, you need to that were received in a legacy current multi-sig wallet. My understanding is it needs to be converted into a normal wallet, which you can do, but it basically means in converting it from a non-multi-sig wallet, from a multi-sig wallet to a non-multi-sig wallet, it means anyone who has the full key can spend the funds, right? It's not a multi-sig wallet anymore. So I like describing it as a conversion process. You can continue spending CLSAG funds. So if you don't, like if you receive funds today, CLSAG, want to spend them and convert them into Triptych funds, you can, from my understanding, sign with a multi-sig wallet and spend those funds without converting. But if you do later receive Triptych funds in that wallet, you need to convert it to a normal wallet and then you'd spend it, if that makes sense. And then you need to make a separate Triptych multi-sig wallet. So it's definitely a bit cumbersome. And the reason you make the separate one is because you've already had a main wallet. And so you know what the main key is. And so it's not really a multi-sig wallet anymore, huh? So yeah, that's the most annoying part of Triptych as far as I'm aware, is that you have this conversion. So trying to document that as well for people so that they really understand that, because I know there's a lot of confusion, a lot of back and forth, even in the research lab channels and dev channels. So yeah, pretty interesting. On a similar topic though, those instant exchanges, I want to quickly touch on atomic swaps. And I want to talk about one in particular. I know there are like 4 or 5 projects actually that are working on Monero atomic swaps, which is actually really exciting. And I originally thought that atomic swaps were more like a year out because the scope was pretty comprehensive and was covering quite a few things. But at the conference, was it 2 days ago? Now, the commit, whatever it is, their project is very much took an axe to the scope and make a really narrow MVP on what specific atomic swaps are available. And actually, I really agree with a lot of their design decisions in terms of making this MVP. So what it basically means is that so there is no, so in trading, there's the general concept of a maker and a taker. A maker is someone who says, I have this price available. I'm willing to sell this much for this much. And then a taker is like, yeah, I agree. Let me do that. So on a decentralized exchange, you have an order book. The orders in there, those are put in by makers, and a taker will pick one of those and take the order. So with this atomic swap, MVP, what they're doing, and they should be able to do this pretty quickly given the scope, allow anybody to run effectively their own maker service. So it's as if you're kind of running an instant exchanger. So it's like as if you put up your own, I don't know, your own XMR.to or whatever, right? But there's not the counterparty risk anymore, or at least it's substantially mitigated, because you're able to penalize the other user if they don't act. Like if you send funds to Change Now, for example, and they don't give you your funds back, pretty much all you can do is try and sue them, right? Like what else are you gonna do? But if it's an atomic swap, if they don't give you your money back, you could be like, okay, well, here's a penalty I'm able to impose. So they have it set up so there is no, like you have to go to a centralized maker, and then they make it such that you can only sell your Bitcoin to them and get Monero back. And from a retail, I mean like an everyday rando user perspective, that's what you actually want, because you don't like who wants to buy Bitcoin from a random person that's probably kind of sketch, right? They're going to be tainted, right? These Bitcoin just are going to be tainted. It's like going on Bisq, right? Everyone loves to talk, oh, it's great to buy your Bitcoin on Bisq, right? The problem is like there's like a 50-50 shot as to whether or not you're buying like drug money on BISC, and you're going to send it to Coinbase and your account's going to be shut down, right? It's like a 50-50. So with this other method, like the maker, they are the ones that receive the Bitcoin. So they know what they're signing up for, right? They know they're signing up to possibly receive this weird Bitcoin, and who the hell knows who's going to actually run these services. It's probably going to be someone living in like Russia or something that just doesn't care. But the normal end user is going to get fungible Monero for selling their Bitcoin. And I guess before I give my prediction about how that will really impact Bitcoin users and how they interact with privacy features, I want to first ask, what do other people that are on today think about how this will change the way that Bitcoin and Monero users, send funds back and forth, and what they do to, get privacy?
Sorry, re-ask the question. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
So I mean, with this one way, even scaled back atomic swaps, like a specific type of atomic swap implementation, how do you think that even the addition of this, do you think it will change the way that Bitcoin users or Monero users try and achieve privacy or interact with both systems?
Well, I actually think the problem is, it comes down to the fact is that what is the inverse transaction? Suppose I want to sell Monero for Bitcoin with the intent of selling the Bitcoin, say, for Canadian dollars. Then where am I sitting here? There's no back into this because you have this risk of tainted coin. So either you do two things, and I'm thinking personally, I'll tell you my own personal opinion on the subject, is I just don't want to deal with Bitcoin. I just want to go straight from Monero to CAD or Monero to USD through a centralized exchange where the game is clear. You do your KYC, you go through the process, you deal with the risk, the anti-money laundering risk, and all this stuff. That's one way to do it. Or if you want to do it small scale and you don't want to go through a centralized exchange, then you trade the Monero for CAD in cash, and you do it that way. But then you got the one-sided scenario.
You are not understandable right now, Mine. You're distorting hard, and we cannot understand what you're saying.
Do you mind if I try and paraphrase? So what you're saying is that, from your perspective, you want to avoid touching Bitcoin as much as possible. You want to sell the XMR direct for CAD or USD or whatever. And you would do that either on a centralized exchange or peer-to-peer through like local Monero or something in CAD Cash. Is that what you're generally getting across? Okay, I hope so. Need Money 90. What were your thoughts?
As far as the atomic swaps go, I think it'll get a lot of usage if and only if it gets integrated into the main wallets in our ecosystem. I do have some concerns for the people who end up with Bitcoin in the very end, because there is the issue of tainted Bitcoins, and generally I assume that the cheapest conversion values in any atomic swap interface are going to be for the coins that are tainted. And unwitting users, if not presented with this information, are going to be left holding the bag, quote unquote, if they end up with Bitcoin. I'm very interested to see how this plays out in the long run, because as far as I'm aware, we don't have many publicly facing, I'm not going to say KYC, there's a better word for it, but a tool for analyzing transaction history on the Bitcoin chain to determine whether a particular output is associated with a transaction that you don't want to be transferring to an exchange. I suspect we'll probably have some of these tools get built out once we have atomic swaps. And until then, it's a moot point, but it's going to be a bumpy road initially.
I think that's a good point. I mean, you're right that I mean, at the moment, we won't have a case where users are buying Bitcoin. They're only going to be selling Bitcoin for Monero. But yeah, I think that anyone who's buying Bitcoin off exchange, I mean, there's a huge taint risk. There just is. It's so significant.
That was the word I was looking for.
The taint.
Yeah, taint risk.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Andres, what are your thoughts?
Very similar to Dove. The times that we are speaking about the atomic swaps and their promises, for example, in the Spanish podcast or in the Spanish community about them, I'm always like kind of worried. I love the technology, but I don't see it being so easy for the people on that end of the transaction. I mean, if you, I always remember Daniel Kim's talk about the lemons and everything else, and it is weird. I mean, it is weird to be on the end of receiving Bitcoin with their history so much on the clear. I mean, uh, so even though some people may want to do that, I mean, they have some key uses for that, because if they are just in the informal market, I mean, in the black market, even if it's not for nefarious purposes, I mean, it's a very small percentage. So that end of that half of the equation, I think at least in the beginning we always lack. But on the other side, I think that is of course great to have the tool, even though we're still not totally aware of how it's going to be used and what's the scale that we have. Because if eventually we end up with some kind of reality in the world that yes, of course, bitcoins tend to be a problem once you get it into exchanges or official places. If you have a lot, if Bitcoin succeeds quite a lot, and you have a lot of transaction between regular people that don't do KYC and they don't care for the tainted Bitcoins, maybe you have like a black market economy that is big enough even for tainted Bitcoins that they don't care to receive them. It's kind of like fungibility by not caring, not technically fungibility.
That's funny.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's the same thing that I
think that's
see here happening with bills, right? I live in Argentina, so it's like some bills they are kind of in the bad shape, and you get less value for them sometimes. But when you eventually get to a lower denomination or some kind of shops like a groceries, for example, they don't care. They just take it because it's a low value and they will just spend it anyway. So when you get to the bank, it's one thing. When you get to the groceries around the corner, it's another. Maybe that's something that will happen with Bitcoin, and you will see those kinds of movement for atomic swaps. People
Man,
just getting
with $20
yeah.
fees on the Bitcoin network, I'm questioning who's going to be buying groceries with Bitcoin. Like, really, I can't see it unless you're buying like over $200 worth of stuff at the same time. And then it's maybe
Maybe
10% fee, but even
avocado.
then, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, 10% is crazy.
It's basically, I mean, I think you have a fundamental two problems. First of all, is everybody going to be able to do this KYC analysis or chain analysis or whatever it is and figure out whether the thing's tainted or not? Who determines it? Who determines the taint? It's the current scenario is the whole thing is proprietary. So you don't even know the thing is tainted or not because some company claims it's tainted. I mean, to me, and the way the regulators are moving, I honestly don't know. I mean, to me, I guess I take the point of view that I just stay away from it, and I'm just going to deal with Monero and with fiat currencies, and I'm not going to get involved with this stuff. I mean, that's just how I feel. I mean, honestly, it's just too complicated from my mind. And the risks are too
Okay.
much.
So my prediction is that having easy swap services from a normal user from Bitcoin to Monero so that they receive Monero will totally change the Bitcoin mixing and money laundering game. I think that mixing is not ever going to be something recommended for normal users anymore. I mean, sure, Bitcoiners will recommend it, but think about your options. Would you rather sell your Bitcoin and get Monero, or would you rather spend a lot of time and money mixing the funds in a way where you're probably going to screw up anyway, right? And I think that you're going to have services that run these like maker like exchanges, like it's basically like an instant exchanger, right? That's just totally non-compliant. And I think they are going to be doing the money laundering at the scale, and they're going to charge for the service, really, right? They're going to do things like they're going to do things more sophisticated though than just mixing, right? They're going to get all this money, and then they're going to be like, they're going to do sophisticated things. They're going to run like a ransomware payment company, let's say, and then they're going to use those tainted Bitcoins to pay Bitcoin ransoms, right? And they're gonna get money, I don't know, in Monero, and then they use that Monero to then like they're going to do all sorts of stuff that is going to be far more sophisticated than a normal user will do. If you're able to do, or if your business is trying to operate money laundering at scale, right? You're going to have offshore companies. You're going to go through the process of setting up dozens of bank accounts or whatever the like. And it's going to be far more simpler for users to just get out of their Bitcoin into Monero, and then to go through a centralized exchange to just trade back for dollars or whatever. And so I think that'll be pretty interesting. I think the sophistication of people who are trying to launder Bitcoin is going to increase it's going to become more large scale, in my opinion, because retail users have an easier option just to like get the heck out of their tainted Bitcoin.
And a cheaper option.
Right. They have a much cheaper and easier option just to sell it at a small loss for Monero and then just run around with that.
I mean, at $20 for a transaction fee, you need to be doing this at a very large scale in order to actually do it efficiently. And so, like, I guess that moves it out of the realm of $100 transactions. And like, I think even for a $2,000 transaction, we're talking about 1% per hop that you want to make in the graph, and it gets real rough for price.
Yeah, with mixing, like that gets expensive unless you're mixing millions of dollars. So that's my thought process, is that this will further push normal users, and by normal users, let's describe them as people who are trying to, like in this case, let's say a user is like, I don't know, getting small amounts of tainted Bitcoin for whatever reason. They're just going to sell it they're going to sell it through an instant exchanger, or they're going to sell it for Monero, or they're going to sell it using an atomic swap thing. That's my prediction.
And I think I would agree. Sorry. No, I would agree with that.
Go, Artie, mine, go.
I would agree with that. I do think also there's a significant risk of sophisticated money laundering attacks. And I would go further and say that you can frame an innocent user with those attacks. So one of the possibilities is that a Bitcoin user gets framed into selling Bitcoin, that is sold clean Bitcoin, and then they're framed into having sold tainted Bitcoin. So that is quite possible to do also. So it's huge risk in here. It's just like, I don't know where I go with Bitcoin. When I start looking at all the risks, I'm saying
it's not understandable anymore. Articline, I would recommend that you watch this recording afterwards so you can see what your mic sounds like. I'm not sure what can be done to fix it, but it is practically not understandable for more than half of the things you're saying.
Andres?
I have like a live question from M2049er that is watching live from an undisclosed from an undisclosed holiday location. It says, yes, it says something about taking that argument about the high fees and how unusable is Bitcoin for daily purchases and all. If you have any of the people watching or yourself have any other ideas about which options will make more sense for day-to-day spending to integrate in the app that is not just XMR to BTC. Would it be like stable coins, or what other features that you can think of could improve or be helpful for people that have Monero on its wallet to spend it daily?
So without shilling Stellar, more and more
Please, no.
stable coins are moving on to Stellar because it's just a more centralized architecture, and it's less likely you're going to see the ETH type fees sending USDC on Stellar compared to USDC on ETH. It's just the reality, or USDC on Ethereum. So I actually do. I think I anticipate a trend to be more stable coins to move to Stellar. But that's my assumption. I
What's
do think
on Stellar right now?
USDC has some stuff on Stellar now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I have no
exactly.
idea.
Is
I mean,
there anyone else for the stablecoin market?
There's USDT. They have some stuff on Tron if you want to add Tron.
Oh boy.
That's free because no one wants to use it. But you can get free transactions there. So yeah, basically, like, I don't want to get into whether Stellar's like good or bad. I have a generally negative opinion of Stellar, but the reality is I think people are going to use it for a lot of these transfers. I know some people might recommend Haven, but I don't really trust. So this is going to sound stupid, but I actually don't really trust a decentralized stablecoin as much as I understand a centralized stablecoin where I know who's behind it. That's my personal view, because I just think that the decentralized stablecoins are it's more likely to be like some weird way where someone abuses the back end of how it's supported, and it's going to get all wild, in my opinion. But yeah, so my view is maybe what?
I mean, DAI as a stablecoin works pretty well, but you have to pay like the Ethereum fees, so it's on the same.
Exactly. That's a good point. Is that, I would normally say like, oh well, if Ethereum transactions were like free, let's say, but they're not. They're like $100 or whatever.
I think they're more like $24. They're about 10 or 20% more than Bitcoin at the moment.
What is it? Is it interacting with Uniswap that cost $100 yesterday, or what was it?
It's quite possible, but as far as I'm aware, normal transaction fees on the network aren't hundreds. They're in slightly higher than Bitcoin at the moment.
Yesterday some of them were hitting 100. I don't think that was probably
Doge.
Yeah, all in on Doge. That's a good point. Doge much stable, 4 legs. But yeah, I would say it's, the practicality of having a stable coin is definitely true. It's just do it on a network that doesn't have such crazy architecture built on top of it that it slows everything down, gets expensive. So maybe that is Stellar. I don't really know.
Sounds very weird.
I don't think so. I think it's just hitting the capacity levels, and then it just gets into trouble. My focus on this is I want to keep those Monero fees affordable and low, and let the other guys do whatever they want.
That's fair, I'd say. We have quite a few comments coming in here now with people's opinions on quite a few of these things. Yeah,
Litecoin.
Litecoin's not a stable coin though. That's a thing, right? Is
no.
Not really sure.
No, well, my first question was more about coins that are widely accepted when Monero is not. So that was kind of the case used for XMR.to as well, that a lot of places accepted Bitcoin, but they didn't accept Monero, so you pay with your Moneros. So maybe Litecoin could be like a good idea. I mean, not as a store of value, but
I mean, maybe. Why not Tether?
Tether is scary.
Right.
But Litecoin has the same problem as Bitcoin. The minute you saturate the network, you'll run into exactly the same thing. And you'll run exactly the same thing with Bitcoin Cash.
The point of
sorry,
Bitcoin is
but
just
that's the
temporarily dodging these limitations while it
Yeah.
happens to be cheap.
I wish we could make Litecoin expensive by the sheer amount of Monero users that are using that.
Yes. Unleash the Monero power on the That's funny. Yeah. No, I don't know. You can use Ripple. No one else is using it right now. That's just, yeah, I don't know. That's a good point.
Well,
I mean,
it's always Bitcoin and SV. That one with its what is it, gigabit blocks or something that they got, the gigabyte blocks in there.
Gigamegs.
No, that's
It's
the ultimate.
gigamegs.
That's the ultimate piece of crap coin.
why not just do Cardano's whatever block accumulation, whatever thing that they do? I don't know what they do. They're their own world. But yeah, anyway, I think
we need a Monero to cash atomic swaps, and that's all.
Monero to cash atomic swaps. I do know someone who's, I mean, it's not really an atomic swap, but I do know someone who's building an exchange thing for that. So we'll see what goes with that. But yeah.
Now that I'm interested in.
Okay. Yeah.
Monero to cash, I'm interested in.
You can buy Monero with Venmo. You transfer Venmo somewhere and you get your, I don't know.
Oh, Monero to gold.
Printer.
Sound gold for Monero. That's the other one works. Monero to gold.
Monero to gold. Interesting. Yeah, that'd be funny. All right. I know we've gone over, but it's been good because we're talking about atomic swaps and whatever Monero features, which are dope, of course. Anything else anything else we should cover here?
Nothing from my end.
No.
I'll make one comment just to kind of jump back to the atomic swap conversation. So I know there's, a lot of questions about whether or not, perhaps the viability of the atomic swaps and how much would actually be used. But I just highlight looking kind of at BISC's 24-hour volume market that there is roughly a 100,000 USD in volume between either Bitcoin and fiat or Bitcoin and Monero. So there are people, there is whether or not you consider 100,000 K per day, particularly liquid or not, I think there is, in my opinion, a decent amount of that would constitute a decent amount of usage to think that atomic swaps would see some notable degree of usage. But
that really died, actually. Like it used to be several mil a day on just the Monero Bitcoin pair.
I mean, it
died.
Yeah. No clue. I mean, maybe everyone's going big on Doge because of Musk. I don't know. So it's
well
tainted Doge. Just the idea of tainted.
No, I maybe there are better options in and out of Monero than dealing with Bitcoin. I mean, that could be the other. So there are people, because a lot of people were trading Bitcoin from Monero as a way of getting in and out of Monero. And if you take, for example, in Canada, we now have Monero Cat. And why would people want to trade Bitcoin?
You got good options in Canada. We only have Kraken here in the US. What we really need are all the ATMs to support Monero. I don't know how most of them don't already. That's just such an obvious use case where someone wants to buy a fungible asset with an ATM. It's just remarkable to me that a lot of those are still Bitcoin only. I think if you had Monero, those things would just fly. Like Monero would fly off the shelves, so to speak, or whatever.
I sincerely I cannot believe how that there's not like million ATMs in South America. It's so for cryptocurrencies, and even more for Monero, for example.
Make one, Andres.
It must be. I had no idea. It must be very, very difficult from a legal standpoint or something like that, because otherwise I just don't see. I mean, Argentinians, for example, are so wary of just storing their own currency that they could trade that for basically anything. With so the cryptocurrencies already have like a big adoption here, but I cannot believe how that the ATM market is not bigger. I think it's just one or two Bitcoin ATMs in the whole Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is a huge city. It's like, I don't know, 8 million people around. And the same happens with several Latin American cities. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, we can hope. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining the Monero Meet. Of course, everyone in the conversation here, Scott, Doug, Sarang, who left, Arctic Mine, Andres, and of course, everyone who's watching. Thank you for making it to the end here. Hopefully, we covered most of the main topics. Gunter, yeah, you too. Keeping it cool.
Thanks for hosting the meet.
Yeah, of course. And
Thanks for hosting.
In addition to the next Monero meets that are coming up, keep an eye out for the Monero-versary. That's April 18th, like it is every year. Rarar and I are really trying to make that a really good event this year, really fun event. Not that it hasn't been in the past. I think it actually has been pretty fun in the past, but we're really trying to put an extra effort this year to make it really good. So any help there is appreciated. Join Monero-community on IRC or Matrix Element. That's super easy. Like if you're like, oh, I'm not going to download IRC, use Element. So easy. It's so easy. You don't need to set anything up. So do that, please. We do need to have you joining the Monero community. So do download Element or use it in browser and join the Monero community channel. And then otherwise, hopefully MoneroCon works out and we'll have that in June. So lots of great things to look forward to. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.